Hello and welcome to the stream. This evening we have the Glen Davis interview. Glen Davis was a coroner. He worked in a coroner's office, and where the wreck, an alien spacecraft hit, he was there. They called, he wasn't there, but they called him, came over there. He says, hey, we need some coffins. We need some infant coffins on the double and all this. He spoke to the nurse. The nurse tried to pass him a note or something. Then the men in black came and shook him down and stuff. But I remember watching the stream a long time ago, and then I recently watched it. And it just kind of all made sense, kind of, sort of, if you just kind of listen to it. But I'll try to make it short and sweet, and thank you for joining the stream. And this is concerning Ron as well.
Yeah. What you've really seen since. Describing essentially what they remember. We've heard of you. It's just a nice part of the world. Everybody's so helpful. Hang on, let's see how our ticket to it. Have we got any kind of an audio now? Yeah, just want to give you a little bit of. Oh yeah, would you just say a couple things? Okay, first of all, the phone was ringing, right?
Okay, the way I became involved in this was started out in the early afternoon, around probably 1:30 in the afternoon. And I received a telephone call from the mortuary officer out at the Walker Air Force Base, Army Airfield Base. And he was inquiring about what would be the smallest possible casket that we could get that would be hermetically sealed. And at that time, I know that we had used like 4 feet, and caskets we had used those before, but I thought they also made them into 3/6. So you want to know if we had any in stock, and I said no, but I can make them call them real, I can have them in, by 7 o'clock the next morning on the truck. So he said, I'll get back to you. And that was the first contact that I had with the base. Then he called back, probably 45 minutes or so later. And he said, I need to ask you some more questions. He said, in case something like this should happen, he said, we need to know what preparation, what your preparations are for the bodies that had been laying out in the elements, And he said, we need to know also what if your treatments of the bodies are the remains, what could you do to them, and if your treatments, would it change any of the chemical breakdown of the tissues, the blood? Would it make a difference? And I said, I thought probably it would. And I said, of course, he knew exactly how we would treat those bodies because we have an outline from them and what we really have to do. I think he already at that point knew exactly what we would have to do. No, I told him, I said, if you have a problem, if you want, if you have something you don't really know what to do about it, let me come out. And I'll, try to help you do whatever you want to do. And he said, no, he said, yeah. So, he said, well, we don't really have anything. He said, we're sitting here thinking in case we should get involved in something like this, what would be our preparation? What should we do? then I went through. I said, "Do you really want to know how we would do it?" Well, yes, we would like to know. So that's when I explained to him that we would have the vats that we would fill up with formaldehyde solution with water, and we put the bodies in them, let them stay there for 24 hours, and then take them out. And then we would pack the bodies in, would be a sawdust and really a lime, what we would pack them in, and wrap them in the plastic bodies that would readily decompose. If there was tissue, deep tissue, we would have to do it hypodermically with needles to get to the deep tissue. Then we would have to aspirate the cavities if the cavities hadn't already ruptured, and then put some cavity fluid in those. So that's, kind of normal procedure. Well, for 2-3 times, yeah. And then when I offered to take care of them, he said, "Well, we don't really, right at this time, we don't really need your assistance." But he said, in case something like this should happen, then he said we would be prepared, we would know what to do. Then we got back onto the subject of maybe not damaging any of the chemicals, compounds or anything of the bodies, or tissues, whatever. Because they want to, how would you pick bodies up like that, and what would you do not to contaminate any of it? Well, I thought maybe what happened, they might have had a VIP or some officer, something that happened. They didn't want to keep it quiet. They probably wanted to do it themselves, not be involved with the civilian businesses anyway.
So after these conversations,
well, I didn't go out to the base. Yeah, I was curious, but I didn't go out to the base, and probably a couple hours later, then I got an emergency call. There was an airman that was injured in an accident. And I took the airman to the base. He rode in the ambulance with me, and I take him out to the emergency room. And that's the way I became really involved at the base. I didn't go out just because I was curious. Well, when I got the call, I left him home in the ambulance went to the scene of the accident, picked the airman up. He did not place him on a stretcher because he had a head injury in the nose. I think his nose was fractured. So I did some minor first aid, and then he sat in the front seat with me all the way to the base. When we got to the base, and he walked into the emergency room, I didn't have to take him in, and they didn't bring out a gurney or anything. He just walked in on his own, and I never did see him after that. Then I had this friend that I wanted to talk to and see. This lieutenant nurse that I knew quite well. They'd only been there approximately, only been commissioned and been out to sign. This was her first assignment to the air base, and I wanted to talk to her. And so I was going down the hall, and first thing, the lady that the lieutenant that I wanted to see was coming out of one room, going across the hall to the other. And she noticed it was me. She said, "How did you get in here? What are you doing in here?" And she said, "You better get out in a hurry." She said, "You're going to get in a lot of trouble." She said, "Would you please leave and get out of here in a hurry?" And then I turned around, and she went on into the other room. Then about the time I turned around, there was another officer said, "Hey, wait a minute." And I said, "Looks like you had a crash." He said, "I see this, in the ambulances out there, see a lot of wrecking." I said, "Where was the crash?" And he said, "There wasn't any crash." And he said, "Just wait a minute." And he said, "Wait a minute." And I, stood there for a minute. He turned around, and evidently he must have waited for somebody else to come out because there was another officer coming out. He said, this man says there was a crash out at the base. He said he wanted to know about, he was inquiring about our crash. And this is when I encountered, he was a red-headed officer. And very nasty, very rough. He said he did not see any crash. There was not any crash. And he said, you get the hell out of here and you didn't see anything and you don't talk to anybody. He said, you're going to get in a hell of a lot of trouble. And I said, look, I'm a civilian, did the damn thing you can do to me about it. He said, no, somebody might be taking your bones out of the sand. That's when he made the remark there. Then there was a black sergeant that was standing beside him. And he said, yeah, but he would make better dog food for our dogs. Of course, I didn't understand that, but my father happened to be an old trapper and for a hobby and everything. And I said, my father uses guys like you for bait these cow traps. And then there was two MPs that joined me right on, took me outside, each holding me around the elbows and escorted me out to the back to the ambulance and followed me all the way back to the funeral. Yeah, because usually where I parked, there was 3 field ambulances parked in the area where I usually park when we back up to the ramps. So I just pulled up to the side in front of those and parked out in front here when I got out and walked in. So when I got up, went up the steps and up the ramp, and I was walking, going into the emergency room, I noticed that the doors were open, but what was odd about it, there was an MP standing beside each one of the vehicles in the back, standing there. And the doors were open. Naturally, I was curious, and I just happened to look in. That's when I saw some debris, or it looked like parts of a plane or something that they hadn't had a crash. Because I've seen them do this a lot of times, bring in pieces in the old ambulances. I noticed in 2 of the ambulances there was some debris that was probably 2.5 to 3 feet, long and probably high. That was propped up on the side of the ambulance there. They were kind of in the shape of maybe like a half a canoe. They were like the front part of the canoe, and it looked like it might be aluminum, but it looked more like the metal looked more like stainless steel that had been heated. It was blue, kind of a bluish tint to it. So what was odd about it looked like around the curved part in the front of the canoe, there was some designs or something that kind of reminded me of maybe some Egyptian signs or whatever. And it was probably about 3 inches in high and probably the length of what the wreckage I saw. It looked like it was destroyed. And the same thing was in the other ambulance too. I mean, I saw practically the same thing. The pieces that were practically the same size, and they just look like whatever that might be. That's part of the wreckage. Well, I didn't know really until the next day. And I called out and I kept trying to get hold of him because naturally I was curious and I wanted to know what was going on. And so I called out the next day and then probably around 11:30, she said, I know you've been trying to get hold of me, but I haven't been available. And she said, why don't you meet me at the officers club? If you have time to meet at the officers club and we'll have lunch and I want to talk to you. And funeral we had at that time we had some of the businesses there had an associate membership to the officers club. And our funeral home had that membership. And also they had a card to identify myself and what business that I was, associated with. So I had no problem. One time I go to the base, all I had to do, a lot of times if it was in the evening, I had to stop, sign the visitor and get a visitor's pass and then turn it in when I left. There was no problem going out there. So I went on out and met her. Thanks, Frank. Well, we, both ordered. I'm not sure remember what we ordered, but it was just a light lunch. But she was so upset. She looked like she was, in shock with what she really talked like and looked like. And she said, I said, well, I was just curious. The reason I want to talk to you. I was curious on what happened. And she said, well, you won't believe it. She said, I don't believe it either. But she said, I got in a lot of trouble on this thing. I'm not real sure about this. But she said, then she pulled out of a little purse, a little pocketbook, whatever she had there. She gave me a little diagram that she had drawn some figures of some arms and face, and so told me that this is what was what was in those. That it was a crash, wasn't an airplane, but they didn't know what it was at that time. Yeah, but she said we had three bodies. That there was three bodies. She said two of them were very mutilated. One looked like it might have walked out, or said it might have lived a little while. And she explained they were like 3.5 feet, 4 feet tall. The two bodies were, you couldn't identify much because they were practically destroyed. It looked like maybe it might have been a predatory animal or something might and did some damage on the bodies too. She said that you had it in the little drawings that I had. The way she explained it and the way she drew it, that the heads were somewhat larger than the human heads. The hands were long, no thumbs. It was just long, very delicate fingers at the end on the underside at the tip of each finger was a pad-like, maybe a little pad, but it looked like the skin had maybe a little suction, like little suction cups on the little fingernails on the hands. The head, the lips were very just a long, narrow, more or less, not full lips like we would have in most of our people, but very fine line, very fine lips. There was no teeth. That was inside the mouth. It was kind of like a real the gums. Maybe it was. She said explained it was almost as hard as if it was rawhide. Maybe like that. The ears. There was only two small orifices on each side of the head with looked like a couple of small lobes that might some way that might cover both of those. But there was not a protruding ear. And also that the nose, there was only two small orifices in the nose. There was really no nose that was convex. It was all just flesh with the end of the face. Very much so. Very emotional. She would have to stop and drink water every once in a while. And also, she never touched the meal, but all the time we were talking an hour and a half that we were there, she never touched the meal. But I'll just, every once in a while she'd go on a little like this, and wring her hands, and she said it was the most I've never been so horrified in my life. I've never seen anything so gruesome in my life. Never smelled anything that smelled worse in my life. And she told me that when I saw her, she was leaving the room to go to the bathroom because she was deathly ill. Going to throw up. She told me, she said, I asked her that question to the doctors, and she said, I don't know that, she said, I don't know that I knew. And that was her answer. So, but she said she walked in the room and they said, hey, we need you need to help us. And that was where she became involved. Then she got ill. The doctors also became very ill. They would have to do some examination and they'd have to leave and go sit down and then they would come back and do a little bit more. Like that. Oh yeah, we visited a while and then I had to get back to the funeral home, go back to work, but then I never could see her after that. And I called out the next day to see how she was feeling, see what, and they told me that she wasn't available. And I wouldn't be available that day. I called the next day, and they told me that she'd been transferred. And it was rather odd because she'd only been at the base less than 3 months. That was her on commission less than 3 months, and that was her first assignment. So it was rather odd that she would be transferred out, within 3 months. And about 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks. I know it was at least 2 weeks. I had a letter addressed to the medicine to the inside it had been returned. Inside of the letter, it was just a note. She said, I don't have time to write. I will write later. This is my appeal number. So then I wrote back to her and asked her more or less how she was feeling and why the sudden transfer. And I was hoping she wasn't in any trouble. It was just a short note. I really didn't go into a lot of detail or anything. Then probably 3 weeks or probably a month after that, then I got a letter that I had mailed to her. It was returned and stamped returned. And also on the red printing it said deceased. And that's the last time I ever heard anything. And so probably then I went out to the base. A few days later, and I was talking to one of the nurses, and I said, whatever happened to the lieutenant? And she said, well, the rumor is that we heard that she was killed with 5 other nurses at the training mission in a plane crash. That was it. So it was in London, England. She said in the note that she sent me that she was in London, stationed in London. That was it. That's the last time I heard it. I don't think so. After tragedy and everything like that, that she was. I would hope not. Or she had to decide if she feels like, she wants to talk, if she feels like I would like to hear from you. See what's going on in her life. Why she wasn't able to contact if she, feels like it. Okay, what happened there? Then the next day after I was there, when I had the problem with the officer and the black man, I was told my father was contacted by our sheriff, George Wilcox, which was a very close friend of my father. They were very good friends. And he called see if my father was home because he wanted to come out and talk to my father. And he did so, and he told my father that there was a black sergeant from the base that came to his office was inquiring about who my parents were, my mother and my father, if I had any brothers or sisters, what my personal family, who they were and where they were. George said that he didn't, I had family that he didn't know where they were. So anyway, he told my father that he did contact my father, and he told my father that he thought I might be in some trouble. And but they evidently didn't explain why I was in trouble. So first thing my father did was get in his car and come to fuel. Said we had to talk. He and I were very close. We were real good friends. Best friend I ever had with my father. He said, I got to talk. He said, if you're in trouble, he said, we got to do something about it. I said, I'm not in trouble. He said, well, you are. He said, George Wilcox told me that you were in a lot of trouble. And that you got involved in something that you had no business getting involved in. And that you could get in a lot of trouble. And I said, no. So I told my father the story. He's the only man that I've ever told the story to. I talked to him 3 minutes to do people that and I did tell my father what the story was. It was unbelievable for him. And then he became very upset, and he wanted to go see a few people and all that because they did threaten my life, so that was the way my father heard about it, and that was the extent of my family. And he never would tell me that my brother, I had a brother that was a firefighter during the time, and I had 3 sisters, and one of them was a nurse. But he was never telling me. So he didn't tell the sheriff anybody else, because the sheriff was supposed to call back in the night all seemed to show the only remark that she ever made was that they definitely weren't humans as we know humans. They could be from another planet. The doctors were explaining this, they could be from our planet. Then you had to be something else or not. She said, well, first thing she said they were black. They were just as black as they could be, but I'd be laying out in the elements in July in Roswell with 105 to 110 temperature of the day and 80 degrees still at night. And that wouldn't be uncommon because we picked up a lot of birds of people that had been found dead just laying in the desert, for days and bits of rattlesnakes and whatever. And they did turn, as black as they can. And, exactly what you were talking about, the smell the other beings fast people because this is a very unpleasant situation. She said, I'm sure there's a back in the skull. Oh, and it was very remarkable, as I thought it was interesting also that she said their skulls, the doctor said their skull bone structure wasn't like ours, it wasn't actually a bone, probably a real heavy cartilage. It looked more or less like a newborn baby. The skull was very flabby, you could mash on the skull and it would, it would give. And so the bone structure, it wasn't bones, not like our bones, it was our skull and everything. That very fine, very delicate, the arm bones, they were like the radial yellow in the arm, that it was so fine that doubted they could lift, she said they doubted they could lift that size in the arms that could lift 50 pounds on the earth or anywhere else. They doubted they had that strength. But she said what the one that had been mutilated to a great extent, it reminded them of an ancient Chinese person, no hair at all, and very, very delicate skin. In fact, he said the skin would look like they could almost see to it, almost transparent. Well, the years, like I stated to you, the years, there was a couple of small orifices, one on top of the other, with 2 little low flaps, one over the other. We didn't really know how those, if they had any significance, how they worked or what. We didn't go into that. And ours was only a couple of very small orifices, holes right there, just above the lip line. it had, there was anything covered. It was just like two small indentations there. And that was it. So it was very unusual. Yeah. The hands, well, there was one hand. There was one hand that evidently wasn't attached to the arm. And she said that where she got sick and left the room was that the doctor had to go and force up and pick it up and turn it over. And that's when they noticed, and there wasn't any thumbs. None of the bodies had any thumbs or anything. They were just long, very fine, very delicate fingers, no fingernails. But right at the tip of each finger, it looked like there was a pad. And then this pad, it looked like it might have had very small little, they were like little suction cups, but very minute suction cups. The doctor, that's the way he explained it. See, I've never discussed this with my father. Is the only person I really ever discussed this. I didn't discuss it at school. Never discussed it with any of my family. Period. I never had until I met Stan Freeman 2 years ago. First time I ever discussed it. I'd love to, yeah, but I'd like to have a tape of mine also. My daughter said if you want a tape of this, I want to keep it, and I want it in the family. But, yeah, I would love to, whatever. If you guys feel comfortable, I'd love to, have some tapes or whatever, I just go to Kmart or wherever and buy them. It's not there. But you were asking me to describe the arms, and this was another thing that the lieutenant brought out, that it was very difference between theirs and ours, and from the wrist to the first joint here, that it was probably 1.5 times longer than the top part up here. It was very odd looking. It was very odd, she said. And the very small arms. Bone structure was of course, I asked her about the bones. We were talking about the wrist bones and everything, and she said it was very similar to ours, but the bones were so small that if their bones probably wouldn't in the arm wouldn't be larger than my fingers. We never listened to her talking about this. She said she really never, she was so sick and everything, she never even entered her mind. That was it. Well, it wasn't discussed with her, it probably was. Like she said, I was so ill, so horrified. But I don't, she said, sat up all night, and she knew I was going to be real concerned. I was going to be on what happened. She knew that I got in trouble, probably. And she would try that, she sat up and made little notes on the back of these little prescription pads. And that's what she had her notes made out, and that's what we discussed, particularly what she had. Well, I was really in charge of all the military contracts. I did all the bids and everything. Really took care of all the contracts and stuff. And that was my deal to take care of the military. And I had a file of everything that ever happened at over Air Base. And like Bob Hope and different, some of the big orchestras and everybody would come and have big parties and everything, hangers, attended. But I would also have pictures and everything. I had a personal file that I kept. I kept everything in this file that things that I intended or whatever. And this is where I put the diagrams and the notes that she gave me was in my personal file. So the Ballard Funeral Home sold at a later date, several years later, that it sold. And the people that bought my funeral home, these were files they were the old files that they kept in the basement, furnace room. And they had I had all the military files together in one file. They kept everything that happened at the base. We also had the contract at Fort Sumner Air Base. They had a glider base there, and also fighter pilot training there, the B-47 and 51. So I had all the files. Everything was one filing cabinet was strictly all military. And that's where I had all this file. I had all this file. I even had a newspaper that Walter Hart, the headlines and all this. Next day I had all that in his file. Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, there's some of the other files are missing also, not just my own file. But my file was in the same. Yeah, most all my file was gone. But there was also some files. They had really actually had destroyed most of the files that were obtaining after a certain year. They just got rid of them. And they told the manager funeral home that managed their name, Raymond Otero, also told me that he knew my file was there. Joe Lucas, that was manager at that time, knew my files were there. And he and I had some personal problems. And he said, get rid of your damn file. The only thing that reminds us of him. That's where the files went, really. Oh, okay, that's okay. That mortuary officer, what? Okay, what would you do if you had to ship one out? And but you couldn't do anything to it. But you couldn't, do any trade machines. What would you do? That's the only thing you could do. And what I would suggest is first thing, if you have a problem, you don't want to destroy the tissue in your blood cells, anything that you don't want to destroy, I would suggest that you contact the pathologist. And I said, I'm sure the Army Airfield, somebody's got some pathologists around. I didn't know if they had one in Roswell. But I said, if I were you, I'd call a pathologist and ask him how he would like to have it done, or whatever you're going to do, or whatever it is. You better do what the pathologist, because he's the one that's going to do the autopsy and make the reports. And I said, the only thing I know you could do is just go to Cloudy Stair or Sunset Creamery. We had two at the time. Buy all the dry ice you can and pack them in dry ice if that's possible. And that's what I suggest that they do. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, sorry. Well, okay. What I suggested that to the mortuary officer, I suggested this to the mortuary officer. We discussed this probably for 20 minutes or better on the telephone. And I kept telling him, hey, if you have a problem, if you got something out there, if you need our services, we have a contract, I would be glad to come out and help you take care of it. He said, no, this is for future. He kept always referring to this as for future use in case we did have something. But then I said, well, first thing you better do, you better get a hold of the path office. I don't know where you have one at the base, but I know you probably have a top path office, something similar to that. I said, that's what I do. You better let him give you the instructions, and you better do what he tells you to do, because he's the one that's going to do the outside. If it's essential, you better do what he tells you. And I said, the only other suggestion I can make is you go to Cloudy's Dairy or you go to Sunset Creamery, buy all the dry ice you can and pack whatever you have, whatever the problem is, you better pack it dry ice and do whatever you have to do with it. Because that's the only way. They tried to put it in the morgue. Up the morgue, they had 2 refrigerated body compartments that we used to put them in, and then we'd go out and get the bodies from there. But they always brought the airman to us, but on the independence sharing, we went down for them. That they weren't cold enough, and it became so offensive, they were afraid they were going to upset everybody in the hospital. So they later moved them over to Haiti. And that's the last thing she knew about Lieutenant. She didn't know how they moved or anything about it. They were taken to Haiti. Because they said that the order was so offensive, they couldn't. Like they said, it was upsetting everything. I'm sorry. She didn't know. She never told me. She never mentioned any suggestions whatsoever. She just said, last she heard, they were that's what she mentioned. We never discussed it.